Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Ask Dr. Be Good show, the show where we bring you the practice, the pedagogy, and the politics of public education. As always, we're here to start building our advocacy army for PubEd this year in time for the legislative session, which in some states starts soon. In our state, in Texas, it starts January 12th. So that's right around the corner. And I've been busy this year really trying to get people to understand how important public education is, even if they don't have kids in school, even if they don't have kids in school anymore, even if they're grandparents, even if they're not grandparents. Because frankly, if we don't graduate kids with the career goals of having a high paying and frankly, higher tax paying job, then down the road, a lot of us are going to suffer as far as our economy, our state economy, our local economy. And frankly, a lot of that has to do with the fact that taxes helps pay for things like our roads, firemen, police officers. And when we don't have our young people graduating with beyond hourly wage jobs, they can't help support our security. They can't help support taking care of people who have needs that need some additional support. So that's a long way of saying that it's good you're here. Know that we now count you as part of our PubEd advocacy army, and that part of what we will need for you to do, similar to what I did just yesterday, matter of fact, is to send notes to your legislators and say thank you, first of all, for them serving us, for having taken the time to leave their families and leave their jobs and to serve us in a public service way, but also to make sure that they don't think of public education funds as the first ones or even the second ones to cut during the next legislative session. So I say that I did that yesterday because we had the November elections. We have new legislators now, and I wanted to thank them for having run and having won, and then have them think of us as a school neighbor and a school support for them to come out and see how the way that they have chosen to fund public education is playing out in our schools. And so I did that for our returning legislators. I did that for our new legislators yesterday, so that they can know that they're appreciated. First of all, we need to have them feel appreciated. And then we need them to know that we are close by, that we are requiring them as constituents to consider voting certain ways, and then just letting them hear our voice. Okay, so today we have a couple of special guests on because we are approaching the holiday season, the 2 weeks that we have off, and frankly, much like now, it used to be the summer slide, now it's COVID slide, and now we're approaching a 2-week time off for our kids. We, as parents, as grandparents, we need to make sure that we keep our children, our grandchildren academically, how can I say this, not academically minded, so that even during the holidays, they're doing some things that will not increase their gaps. As some of you have heard me say in past shows, we have COVID gaps. It doesn't matter how academically bright and ahead your child was. Due to the not being in school, your child had some learning losses. Even our A, B students had learning losses. And so if we have that understanding, and I've presented a lot of research around that we now are able to prove, because we're 9 months in to COVID, Lots of research is going on there. The researchers are furiously studying this phenomenon that we've never had before. And so the research is starting to trickle out about, frankly, surprise, surprise, if the kids don't go to school, they don't learn as much. Now, having said that, my district was very strong about making sure that we got our computers to kids and got virtual learning to kids within a week or two of the COVID shutdown. But as engaging as we tried to do it, especially in the beginning, it just wasn't near what our kids needed and what our teachers could do in the beginning. So to walk us through what those beginning times look like, just because you were there, and then we'll go into how we can keep our scholars moving forward even during holiday breaks. So introduce yourselves first, and then talk a little bit about your backgrounds, and then we'll go from there. Elizabeth?
Hello, I am Elizabeth Hunter. I am the instructional coach for reading, English language arts, and social studies at Legacy Preparatory Charter Academy. I am in my 14th year of education, and my passion is serving others. And right now, that's what I'm doing, is serving our district and filling in those needs of support. So I'm super happy to be here today. So thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here. And who did you bring with you? Nemia?
Hello, good. Thank you for inviting me. And hello, everyone. My name is Nemia Vergara, and I'm one of the math instructional coaches for the district. I've been in education for 25 years, and I'm just happy to be part of the Legacy family.
Welcome, ladies. So Elizabeth, we'll start with you. Talk a little bit about what it was like in March shutdown and how we went from face-to-face to total virtual, and what were some takeaways that we've learned from that period?
So going into the shutdown, we had to really put some practices in place immediately. And that's the one area that I'm so proud of us for doing, which, we've talked about before, is going 100% virtual and immediately beginning those virtual instruction routines. And so a huge part of that has been the parent communication and getting the students connected. So from the spring, with the student engagement that we had at that time, to looking now in the fall, we've had a huge increase in parent communication and student engagement. And so that is one area that I feel like we've had the most growth in, is getting our scholars engaged in the learning online and being in that routine where they have the high expectations of what their learning experience will be online. So those are huge components to setting the routines and having an effective virtual class. So
how did you increase parent communication? What did you do?
Well, I think with the situation, we had to make sure that we had multiple modes of communication in place. Whereas, we could see a parent face-to-face, through the drive-through even, and have those casual check-ins. With this, we had to put even more effort into setting the virtual communication, Google Classroom. In addition to, we're used to sending emails, but adding those extra components, such as the learning apps that we use for Remind, those parent communication apps that, can help increase just that extra, oh, I have a message from the parent we need to get logged into our Google Classroom, and just those daily reminders, and just being very more so present online, because we're used to being physically present, but now we have to make an intentional effort to be virtually present. And so putting those practices in place has been essential.
Am I remembering correctly that you all had Tuesday videos for parents for the upcoming curriculum that was coming the following week?
Yes, and thank you for mentioning that, because that's been another area that we've, I feel like, made a lot of improvement and increased parent communication and scholar engagement, is pre-recorded videos, and including live scheduled parent meetings where they have that once a week time that they can ask questions and get feedback and get the reminders of the different programs and what the expectations are for that.
Were they well attended?
Yes, I actually had the opportunity to be a part of one last week where we had over 50 parents connected, and they were posting questions in the chat and really engaging in that process of that parent meeting that we had. And also, it's a time to just have that extra connection, to get to see the teachers in action and get that communication back and forth going.
That's very powerful. Thank you for that. So Nemia, you represent math. And so, gosh, that's one of those areas where a lot of parents are a little bit they have baggage left over from their math days when they were in school, right? And so talk a little bit about the early shutdown time, and how did you all get math to be more user-friendly online?
Mathematics scores is one of those things that has been a struggle. Having that in virtual classroom is difficult. But teachers continue to find a way to get the students to talk. Whether it is using interactive tools, whether using different Google links. Okay, just allowing them to be able to have them verbalize their thinking. Okay, communication with parents, constant emails, or Remind 101, all of those, reminding them that they have to do certain things, that they have assignments to do, that they have to do Imagine Math as a consistent practice. And, Imagine Math has a live tutor that they can use. All these things that we put in place so that the parents are informed, and the students are constantly engaged. The ones who are in virtual classrooms are constantly engaged. Just this week we actually reviewed the mathematical discourse as part of a PRBL process, and it's really something that we have to continue promoting in the classroom, whether it is face to face, whether it is virtual. So it's something that's essential that we have to continue doing, and it should not just happen in the classroom. We also extending it to happen, at home. Ask your child, how do you get, 21? How do you get 8x squared? Allow them to communicate with you, verbally, what's going on with this mathematical process.
Do you feel that you're having to train parents in math before the kids get it? Is there some of that going on?
This situation has actually placed our parents as our partners, as educators, and we are really very appreciative of that. You are now our partners in educating our children. So we have given you some responsibilities, and we're really proud of what you do, because we see that as the students respond, when we meet with them, they talk about things that they do at home. My mom helped me with this, my dad helped me with this. So placing you as part of the educational system is actually something that this is really, really proud of, and we appreciate all of your efforts.
So some parents, I'm sure, have shown appreciation, but there are others who are not so happy. What do you do with the not so happy parents?
We offer help. We do small group sessions, with elementary, it's in the afternoon, with middle school and high school, it's in the morning. So if we are not able to, the parents are not able to provide help for the kids, we are still there. We're available to provide small group sessions with the students, tutoring sessions, so that they can still catch up with anything that they are having difficulty with. So we are there, and anything that they need help on, all they have to do is to email our teachers, and we'll do everything we can to help our kids.
So let me ask you, what this is a podcast that goes out nationwide. So what advice, and this is to both of you, and just sort of raise your hand who wants to go first. What advice do you give parents who are in other school districts who maybe aren't getting that, who aren't getting the support maybe that they feel that they should get when it comes to their child's academics?
Well, I'll go.
Go ahead, Elizabeth.
Elizabeth, go ahead.
I was about to say, I'll go first. So I think with that, you have to really advocate for your child. And, sometimes that's a difficult thing to do. But I know for me as a parent, I have always thought of myself as an advocate for my son. And so, sometimes it does take the parent reaching out to that teacher and saying, hey, I'm concerned. What can I do to help at home? And ask for those resources, ask for the assistance, and ask for the help. And then hopefully you're getting the support that you need. And it's like Nemia said, communication with the parents and back and forth. It's really all about the communication and having the open communication and being there to support and help as needed. So it's really important.
You've said it well, Elizabeth.
It's amazing how school districts are responding during this time. Some of it not maybe as student-centered or parent-centered as what we would want the schools to be. I'll give you a couple situations. I had a dad reach out, and they asked Dr. Be Good. So they're asking me, and they said that their kinder child who's been virtual this year has been lagging behind. Surprise, surprise, especially kinder. It's very, very difficult to be an effective virtual kinder teacher. I mean, there are effective virtual kinder teachers, but it takes a lot of work, a lot of being on, right? And so the teacher and actually the principal of the school had suggested that possibly the kindergartner not return to school until next year. That was their solution. And this is a public school. And so I was able to let the dad know that that is not a viable solution, that this was a public school, that they cannot kick a kindergartner out because she's a little behind. And this is a very well-meaning dad. This is a dad who is an IT higher up, very intelligent, and has 4 kids. And so she's the youngest, and that's a handful. So he's not able to spend 100% quality time just with her. And so the school's solution was to kick her out. And so we were able to solve that with the school to say, no, that's not a solution that I think will help my child. What other solutions do you have? And they were able to come up with a different solution, which involved her actually coming to school now and taking part in small groups. And so, and then I had another, actually the same day I had another different parent in another school district call me and was asking me other questions about the solutions that schools had for their children. And so what we have to help parents understand, and again, you guys are parents, so you have power. Parents have power in schools. When used correctly, can really form a great partnership with the school and the teacher so that it benefits I'll say the whole family. It certainly benefits the child, but it benefits the whole family when you have a great relationship going on with the teachers and the school. Matter of fact, I'll give another reason why having a good relationship with the school pays off. If you have a good relationship with a school and you're going through tough times, as many of our parents are, and you reach out to the school and you say, I don't have Christmas gifts, I don't have shoes for my kids, as we've had in our district. We have a family of 9 who are having trouble getting enough shoes to fit their kids because they keep outgrowing them. And so because of the great relationship the school has with this family, not that we wouldn't do it for any, but this family was comfortable. And that's what we want, comfortable coming to us and saying, I absolutely am at wit's end. We don't have enough food for the holidays. We don't have enough shoes for our 9 kids. And we were able to step in. And happy to do it. And matter of fact, we had donations so that it just so happened that we had very, very strong donations this year from staff and then from a local church. And so the giving that's been going on and the gladness and the feeling of wonderfulness that comes from being the giver, right? The church folks were happy, the staff was happy because they saw the outcome of their donations. We not only had food and gifts for kids, we also had enough to buy bikes for good attendance. We had drawings. So the feeling of wonderfulness going into the break has really bolstered everybody involved. So really good reasons to have a strong relationship with your school, especially during tough times. So now, we've talked from COVID start to now, and here we are at the start of our 2-week holiday, knowing that many of our kids are still trying to overcome that COVID gap that they had in both reading and math from last year. So Nemia, talk a little bit about what you suggest parents can do these 2 weeks without, having to have class every day, right? To where they keep their mental head in the game, in the math game.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Good. So, in the next 2 weeks, the kids are going to be at home, and we parents think, what can we do that as a family that is enjoyable? At the same time, it's going to stimulate thinking, stimulate problem solving, reasoning, and numeracy in general. What can they possibly engage in that will be both challenging and exciting? So I'll start in the kitchen, baking. It's always a sweet and fun way to reinforce those mathematical skills. With little ones, you can talk about shapes, you can increase it to different types of polygons. You can do counting, you can do fractions, you can do measurements, you can do weights, okay? And, it's also a good way to reinforce, multiplication facts. It's always been, one of the struggles of kids. So you have 1 row of 7 cookies. So what if I have 3 rows? How many total cookies do you have? So the concept of repeated addition is connected with multiplication. And with older kids, you can use that as a way to review commutative property of numbers. When you do 3 groups of 7, isn't it the same as 7 groups of 3? So when they think of those properties, they're gonna relate it back to those baking experiences. Okay, let's talk about conversion. 1 recipe requires 1.5 cups of sugar. Well, what is it in? What is it in in ounces. If you're going to have the recipe, how much sugar are you going to have? If you're going to double the recipe, how much sugar are you going to have? Okay. Then from the kitchen, let's go to grocery shopping. It's always a great way, shopping, supermarkets has lots of different opportunities to reinforce mathematical skills. Every time you put in an item in a chart, in a cart, I'm sorry, and you say, okay, this is $11.25. How would you approximate this? How would you round this? Okay, well, 25 cents is less than 50 cents. So I can round it down to $11. You can review the concept of rounding up. You can also do, comparison, brand, store brand and name brand. Which one is cheaper? By how much? We can talk about percent increase, percent decrease. Last year, the cost of this item was $6. Now it's $8. What happened? So there was a percent increase. So those little things that will reinforce their thinking, reinforce their learning about percent increase, percent decrease. You can also, do which one is a better deal? What do you mean by better deal? It's cheaper. Just because it's $2.98 and the other one is $3.64, does it mean the other one is cheaper? No, we bring it back to unit price. So those opportunities. So from the kitchen, from the grocery store, so go back to the family room. Let's talk about, activities. What can we do? Let's go back to that old board games. And I can only name a few, Connect Four, chess. Chess is one, it's based in logic. It will allow them to develop that abstract calculation, them being able to think ahead. Okay, isn't that the basic of mathematics? Patterns, imagination, and just planning. I can think of another one, Sudoku. I know everybody's familiar with that. And you would say, well, there's no math in there. There's no addition, subtraction. But you know what? This is actually about inferencing. This is about making deductions, creating those pathways. So those are basic mathematical skills that you don't have to mention it, but the process of doing it will lead them into that. Okay. So from the board games, what about talking about money? Okay. This is, there's no such time as, it's too late to learn about money. Okay. Let them use paper money and introduce about investing. Okay. Let's buy some shares of stocks. Let's use paper money and let them, track the growth every day for 14 days. And at the end of 14 days, who earned money, who lost money. Okay. Those kinds of things. Let them create their own board games. Okay, dominoes using fractions, decimals, percents. And for older kids, they can use equations as their domino cards. There's lots of things that they can actually do that it's not going to be a requirement for them to get a piece of paper and do, word problems. But the process, the experience of doing it is going to give them the experience. What about crafts? Let them create snowflakes. It's a good way to review the concept of symmetry, the concept of, congruence. So they fold the paper, they cut it up, they open it up, voila, you got two congruent shapes. So it's a good review of geometric concepts. Origami. Origami is the art of paper folding. Hey, anybody can do it, but other kids can actually do complex shapes. And that's wonderful. So that's a way to develop, the ability to do three-dimensional comprehension, imagination. So all of those are basic mathematical skills. And Dr. Good mentioned earlier about traveling. Okay, let's go driving. We have traveled 136 miles in 2 hours. What does it mean? So review a little bit about speed. So related to unit rate, related to speed, okay? And then make predictions. So if our speed is 6 to 8 miles per hour, let's do some prediction. In 5 hours, how far will we have traveled? So all of these things, probability with little kids, in a span of 10 minutes. Let them, jot down the vehicle colors. Okay. And from that data, tell them, okay, what's the probability of us seeing a red car? Okay. So there are pockets of opportunities that we can actually have, that we can find where we can actually review those and reinforce those math skills. So it's going to be both enjoyable. One more thing that I remember, place value. Okay. This is one of those concepts that our kids struggle with, but use paper money, use dollar bills as the place value. So when you think about $246, use the $1 bill as the one's place value, and the $10 bills, use them as the tens place, and the $100 bills is for the hundreds place. Use something that they can connect with, that will make more sense to them, and they will understand it better. Okay, so let's get them involved in something that is enjoyable, but at the same time, it's going to make them use those mathematical skills that are really important, essential in doing mathematics.
I've been an educator for a long time, and I've been helping parents know how to use their home goods, to further math. But you hit on some that I'd never thought of. It makes perfect sense. The origami, snowflakes. So, matter of fact, I think I put in the post, I saw a picture of how to do different snowflakes. And so I'll put that in the comment section so parents can have that. Card games, just, I was visualizing playing card games with the cousins, right? It's fun. You're bonding with the cousins, but you're also doing math. And so those were great suggestions. All right, Elizabeth, pressure's on. These were fantastic for math. What can you help parents with as far as reading is concerned, literacy?
Well, first, thank you, Nemia, so much for giving us so many ideas, because even as you were sharing, I was making connections on how we could tie that into reading skills with the inferencing and making predictions, and the cooking, reading recipes, and being involved in those natural opportunities to learn and engage in a really fun way. And so some of the examples that you gave, I actually was really excited to include into developing and continuing on with those reading skills. And even with the shopping list, have your child create their own shopping list and use that shopping list as they go to the grocery store, and making those writing and reading connections with that. And so I think the key is fun and in their natural environment. And so as I was thinking about what are some opportunities that you can do as a parent with your child at home or children, keep them into that routine, but not letting them know that it's really a routine. Building in those daily reading time opportunities for reading for enjoyment. So a lot of times, we don't make time for just reading things that we're interested in. But then adding that natural environment in there, go for a walk, take your book with you, go for a walk to the park and go sit down and read a book, because there's actually statistics out there that say, reading for enjoyment, it decreases anxiety, it decreases stress. We're in a really stressful time right now. So I think it's important that, we do those things that are going to help us with the self-care. And it also helps with sleeping habits. And, so keeping those routines are really important. And then including those reading opportunities with some regular writing opportunities. So I was making connections when you were talking about the origami, or, creating those snowflake shapes. Write a quick story about that snowflake, or, create, use your imagination and do, ask them, create through your imagination, like I said, a story that you could create with this, or bringing it back to the board games, Scrabble, Boggle, using those, opportunities to have family time, but also continue those literacy skills. And so I think those are really, really good ways to create those routines in a natural way that don't make it feel like, oh, we need to sit down and work on schoolwork right now. And the key is setting that as a daily routine. And so, again, with going back to the writing, write a thank you note. Over the holidays, we're thinking about being thankful for the people that we have in our lives and friends that we have. So, using those natural experiences to create some of those writing opportunities. Writing a letter to a friend, a letter to a relative, especially now with not being able to see family members that we normally, would be able to see, due to those safety precautions that we're, putting in place right now. And so there's so many ways that, you can continue on with your reading and writing and develop literacy skills. So thank you.
So, would it be fair to still ask parents to make sure that at least several times during the 2-week break that they do have their child one day maybe do 30 minutes of their literacy software and the other day do 30 minutes of their math software? I think that would still be fair, wouldn't it?
Definitely.
Yeah.
I think still including some of those routines with technology is important. We want to give them a break from the regular classroom day, but keeping those routines in place with, especially if you have district online tools that are available that you can use at home, such as some programs like iStation that I know many districts use. Get on iStation for 15, 20 minutes, 2 or 3 times throughout the week. So it doesn't feel like I'm having to sit down and doing school every day, but you're still continuing to build those literacy skills into a routine. So yes, I think incorporating that a little bit here and there would be good, especially with district tools that are available.
As you were all talking, it came to me that what we're really asking parents to do possibly is to hear what you've said, write down ideas under the math and literacy columns, and then sit down with their child and say, how do you all see us incorporating not only the fun stuff, because we can't play cards all day and we can't play board games all day, but how do you guys see us incorporating some of the software time into your day, some reading, reading a book, putting a book in your hand, maybe going to the library at least once to pick out books that we then give back the second week. Just that discussion needs to happen. I'm a big proponent of parents sitting down with their kids and them coming up with a mutually agreeable plan of action. And then, and I always say you should write it down, have kids sign off on it, and then the implementation of it, of course, is always the meat of it, right? But helping kids understand that the holidays are fun and they're important in their own way, but that doesn't mean we do just fun holiday and we forget all about our learning. I think the strongest families with the strongest academic learners are those who have trained their kids to understand that learning is important all the time. And so I think what we're also asking parents to do is to become sort of always teachers. And here's what I mean by that. When my daughter had my first grandchild, they lived with us. And so the first 4 years, I had that grandchild in my home. And I was constantly on. And now that was 10 years ago. So I was still, I was an administrator and then superintendent during that time, but I was still a teacher. And when I was in the car with her, I would sit in the back seat with her and I'd say, do you see the red car? You see the white truck? That's a bank. And I started doing this when she was like 1. That's a bank where people bring their money. That's a store where people buy things to bring home for food. And so I was constantly talking to her about what she was seeing in her environment. And this is a child then who tested at first grade level when she was 4. So, and that was no hardship. I enjoyed every single bit. I miss not being able to raise great kids in my own home, right? Because it was fun. I enjoyed it. And so what we're asking parents to do is to not see this as a tedious thing of taking part of your job, but to help support their learning and the work that we're doing in the schools with the relevant math and literacy that is found around the home as part of their natural environment. So now when I have my grandson over, we go on science walks. And I've talked about those science walks. We do nature walks and we talk about erosion, and he's 4. And we talk about erosion, we talk about worms, and he helped us plant the begonias in the spring and he put down the fertilizer. And so making all of these content areas relevant to them is a parent's job as well as our job. And so thank you for giving them more ideas and just some really, like I said, I've been in this game a long time and you guys gave me stuff that I'd not heard of to do with them, with kids. So thank you. I'll let you go now, but gosh, thank you. You have filled a parent's mind and hands with some really good ideas of how to keep their kids academically strong during the winter holidays. Thank you. All right.
Thank you so much.
All right, my pleasure. Our next talk piece today is going to be what doctors wish patients knew about New Year's resolutions. I thought this was an interesting article, and a lot of people wonder why I talk so much about wellness. And I just have the understanding, as old as I am and as long as I've lived, that if we're not well, as children, as adults, we can't have a healthy day, right? And so this article caught my attention. It's by a couple of people who are AMA ambassadors, the American Medical Association Ambassador Program. And who knew they had that? I didn't know they had that. And this is Joanna Bisgrove, an MD, a family physician in Madison, Wisconsin, and Frank Clark, MD, a psychiatrist in Greenville, South Carolina. And they are members of the AMA Ambassador Program, which equips individuals with the skills and knowledge to speak confidently to the American Medical Association's initiatives and the value of membership. But the program is also there to increase overall awareness about what AMA does for physicians and their patients. And so here's what these physician experts had to say. Take time for self-care. Now that's sort of a new term that we've started using during the COVID period. It was probably out there in the counseling world, but it wasn't brought to our world until COVID. And the need to have self-care as part of our work to keep us healthy. And so a lot of resolutions should be based on self-care. And what they say is the way to do that is to set SMART goals. And some of you have heard the term SMART goals. SMART goals are goals that are realistic. They are specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-based. And so how to do that is that we can't say, I'm going to get healthier. That is not a very good self-care goal. Why? Well, because it doesn't meet the SMART goal traits of being specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-based. So what we need to do is have goals that say, well, I'm going to work out for 30 minutes 3 times a week. That's a good start. Now we need to sort of fill in the 30 minutes. If you have a local gym, my gym, for example, is very affordable. It's $10 a month. It's walking distance from my house. And what I do is when it's nice out, I walk to the gym because I have a Fitbit, got to feed the Fitbit. And I walk to the gym, I work out, sometimes with a trainer, sometimes not, and then I walk home. And so I've met a lot of my SMART goals doing that because I have step goals. I have the goal of just working out at the gym for, usually it's at least an hour, if not an hour and a half every time I go. And I try to go 4 to 6 times a week, depending on my schedule. And so very definitely I've been able to do that the last several years. And I have seen huge benefits from that. So another goal would be to maybe make food style changes. And the doctors here talk about 4 ways to help patients with chronic disease make dietary changes. So a lot of people live with chronic disease. So we say, and some of you have heard me talk about this, chronic disease are things like inflammation, diabetes, heart disease. And oftentimes, if we can get our goal setting done right, we can find ways to decrease the chronicness of our disease. As a matter of fact, there are people who have been able to reverse their type 2 diabetes through changes in their diet and in their exercise routines. And so it is possible. It takes some discipline, but the benefits are, of course, terrific. So the Dr. Clark recommends finding an accountability partner to help you stay on track. Focus on what you can control, right? With 2021 being so uncertain, the focus should be on what you can control, said Dr. Bismarck. For example, New Year's resolutions could be making sure that you're wearing a mask, first of all. That's a basic one. Some of you may be reluctant to wear a mask. Some of you may not be sold on the science behind it. You know what? How about we just decide we're going to wear a mask because it might help others, and that's a good enough reason, right? And of course, they said, or it's sounding like a broken record, but please wash your hands, and stay close to your loved ones. Don't do too much going out and being among too many big groups. And so find ways to remain connected. Reaching out and helping others by connecting in some way are things that have really been cut off this past year. And people feel alone, they feel isolated. And so the reason you hear sometimes these big groups getting together is people just sort of have had it. They've had it being alone or being in small groups, and they want to see the big groups. But virtual distance should not equate social isolation. By being creative in the way that you you connect virtually. For example, we have 26 on my husband's side who normally would get together. That includes 9 kids. And so the older folks in the group were reluctant to do that. So we are now going to have sort of portal parties. We all are going to get on the Zoom link at the same time within our bubbles, right? And each family who has kids or grandkids will have already found a way of getting the gift to the child because of the name. We pulled names and they had to buy gifts and exchange gifts. And then the kids will open their gifts online. And so it's not a perfect solution, but at least the cousins get to see each other. They get to talk a little bit. They get to ooh and ah over their gift that they opened up. And so, you know, even though our younger ones were reluctant to do that, they did have to concede that the older folks, that some of them have comorbidities, they didn't need to be around a group of 26. As much as we love each other, that doesn't prevent COVID from coming in and getting some of us, right? So we're having to make those creative virtual decisions. Make small changes. Encourage people to make changes about small changes, like, and the doctor here is saying, I always say to my patients in general, the tortoise always beats the hare, and slow and steady wins the race. Anytime we're working on a habit change, the way they're going to do it is not by picking up a new trend or starting off a massive exercise routine. It's by making small changes. Here's another good one. A good resolution is let go of guilt. You can always restart. Don't feel guilty. It's hard to change habits. It just is. And that's why you take baby steps. And if you falter, you say, okay, I'm going to do it again. Start over. And so it doesn't mean that you didn't expect to exercise 3 times this week. You did expect to do it. But if you only got there twice because of an emergency, a work commitment, something, then that means that you make the effort to go 3 times next week. Okay? And maybe you get in a little extra walking. Okay? You may not be able to get to the gym for that 3rd time, but you can do the walk after dinner or the walk before dinner when it's a little bit not so cold. Just think of the opportunity to hit the restart is never not an option, okay? Celebrate your wins. Even though we're physically distancing ourselves and taking all the safety precautions to help decrease the transmission of this deadly virus, you don't want to give up hope on the resolutions that they have. We might just have to be a little bit more creative during these unprecedented times. For example, if someone's resolution is to travel more, then you may have to travel virtually and explore a new country online. We must be mindful of the resources we have at our fingertips. And so I know that I've seen many, many excellent resources to travel virtually, to explore museums, to explore art galleries online. There is no reason why you can't satisfy your travel bug if you're one of those who just absolutely probably should not be going anywhere right now due to a possible chronic issue that you have or comorbidity. So give yourself permission to do it in a different way for now, right? So this year's harder for everybody in so many different ways, says Dr. Bisgrove. Every step you take, no matter how small, should be celebrated as a victory, okay? So again, helping our kids. Now let's talk about how we're going to translate that into helping our kids form SMART goals. Now, first of all, why is it important to help our kids do SMART goals? We need to keep them focused on wellness and health, no matter how old they are. That doesn't start at 20, doesn't start at 30. It starts now. And training our kids to learn how to be healthy, to learn about wellness early is part of our work as parents and grandparents. And so that's a New Year's resolution is a great reason to bring that topic of wellness back to our kids' attention in a way that's sort of socially acceptable, right? Everybody's doing that. We can talk about New Year's is the time to come up with some New Year's resolutions. We may have to explain what that is to some of our younger ones. We have them write it down. Again, remember literacy. If they can, they write their 3 or 4 goals down, and we talk about how they're going to accomplish them. Fantastic talk opportunity between parents and children. And then we do check-ins, right? We do weekly check-ins or maybe every other week check-ins with our kids to see how they're doing on their goals. And so that there's a slight accountability. We don't want to bash them and make them feel guilty when they're not fulfilling it, right? But we're trying to find ways to help kids stay focused on goals, because frankly, that's the same thing that we ask them to do at school. Any good school district is asking kids to come up with their academic goals after every assessment. And so this is just aligned with what they're being asked at school to doing it at home, right? And so maybe one of the goals is to study in a different way. Maybe our kids have been a little bit struggling with the academic piece, maybe because of COVID, maybe because they're in a virtual environment. And so maybe one of our goals is to be how we can resolve our academic struggle. Maybe the kids need to learn to set aside time during the week where they study their vocabulary, they study for an upcoming test, they read, right? They read something that interests them. Kids need structure, and so making sure that they feel that structure and that they follow the structure is part of our work as adults, because if we do that early enough and long enough, they will take it over on their own, be able to do it on their own, and carry it with them into college and their careers. So no pressure, parents, right? And it's never too late. It's never too late. And so goals might be around wellness and health, exercise, their academics, maybe some financial. Remember, we spent some time last week talking about financial literacy. One of their goals could be about saving money, how much money they're going to save this year. And we actually get them a savings account. And some of the money that they get during the holidays, get during birthdays, maybe 50%. It's an agreement that 50% goes into the savings account. So as always, time is a fast friend for us on our podcast, and we're down to our last couple of minutes. Want to thank everyone for being on today. I hope that you left a little bit more educated about some of the good things happening in public education, some of the concerns that we have. Of course, the concerns being I started early on talking about advocacy and about what you should be doing to help further the public ed cause. Make sure you can just Google, find my state legislators and put in your zip code and your street address, and you can find them, write them a note, thank them for their service, and then ask them to be careful about going into the next legislative session, thinking about what not to cut, right? Do not cut public education funds. I hope you left with the understanding about how important this is too. I talked about that early, and how all of us must be part of helping kids become more than hourly wage earners. We need college-minded taxpayers who will help keep our economy strong, and not only now, but in the future. And if we don't help these kids today, they're not going to help us later when we need that, right? So join me in my pub ed advocacy work. And if you have questions, I'm going to ask Dr. Be Good. As I talked about earlier in the show, I actually had parents reaching out to me this week about some issues at school. Go to the Ask Dr. Be Good Facebook page and email me directly, or you can also go to my Ask Dr. Be Good Facebook app. App is what I'm trying to say. You can find it in the Google store or the Apple store, and send me a note and let me know how I can help you. We're here doing the job together to help kids become stronger learners, and then stronger workers so that we all benefit together over time. Thank you, everyone, and have a wonderful holiday.